Mike Jones says, so I hope they keep calling, but help everyone out, not just the G. And you know what? They seem to be the type to always be helping somebody out because they try to help me out. They did not have to come on this channel. They're helping me out by being on this channel. They're helping you out by giving you something to talk about, entertain you. And again, they said through the TV shows, through all of these projects, they want to do things for the culture. Okay, do what you can. But let's not talk like we don't pick and choose. Because if that's the case, you got to judge every rapper that's on, what's the name of Jay's label? It's not The Rock no more. But whatever it is, that girl Desiree, she's on papers. We pick and choose. You'd be surprised how many of your favorite so-and-sos got them papers on them. Whatever. I make sure to mind my business. Not be involved with you when it comes to anything. It can be anything.
Cocaine business.
Now, how much school did you do? How,
I actually went to high school. I was actually, this is a good question. No one ever asked me that, but I was actually, for the most part, my brother and I actually did really well in school. We ended up going to a public high school right in my neighborhood, and in my junior year, I was actually kicked out of school by law enforcement. Them understanding who we were, they felt like, I wasn't part of a gang at that time. No way involved in gangs, but that was the environment we were in. And my older brother was, he was a shot caller. And them understanding that part of it, it's like they kind of didn't, you were trying to clean up the school and basically gave us an ultimatum, and we were kicked out of school. But then I actually ended up getting a diploma by an alternative of like high school, where you go, basically it's like a GED, but fast track, and got a high school diploma. My twin brother did actually attend college. He did a few semesters in college. But by then we were already, in our own world of drug trafficking. So
you became very...
We was millionaires by then. All right? Going around in Bentleys and shit. I started selling drugs when I was 15. I would never push my kids in that direction. You'd be surprised how many people do. It's a sad story. Ivan said the rules and codes from the street are out of the picture when you reach that level. I'm from Monterrey, Mexico. Everyone tells. And that's something that, we always knew that cooperation was part of the game, in the sense that you're not going to get too far in the game without running into it. Okay? It ain't the first time. Again, the twins themselves were cooperated on before they even cooperated. So it's part of the game in that aspect. But in Mexico, with this game, it's on a whole nother level. It's a tactic. It's a part of the game, most literally. It is like what flopping has become in basketball. Back in the day, it was, things like that were just a little thing that you'd use here and there. When it becomes a glitch, when you're using it as a crutch, now it's part of the game. Now it's different now. It's not the same thing. So there are no rules, there are no codes. There was a time where families were off limits. We know that's not true anymore. So why are we asking morality from an immoral game? Like, what are we talking about here? Rules fell off. You died back in the day. You stole, you died. The old guard didn't play. Yeah, it was a different time. Now that it's a tactic, it's like, okay, it can't be the topic of my conversation all the time. Like, oh, yeah, we get it. Again, you're right. People that they started with, friends that came up together. Now, if the shoe was on the other foot, how many of those 50 people, if put in the position that they were in, wouldn't have made the same decision? We don't know that.
Big, very young in terms of numbers in trafficking. Did it just blow up? Like, did you start kind of small, it just grew and grew and grew very fast? Or did you see yourselves right away, like, as kind of entrepreneurs in this? Or how did things escalate so fast?
I guess with my background, right, with my father, being in Mexico, that's what people like. I feel like there's two sides of us. Growing up in Chicago, growing around those gangs and that culture, and then growing up in Mexico, where my father made sure he introduced us to everyone and make sure we treat everyone with respect. And coming from a small town, which was like my second home, is it's all about respect, how you treat people, mannerisms, what your last name was, and how we carried ourselves. I think came naturally through my father. And so, by the time we're 13 going into 17, we basically become my older brother's helpers in the business. And he, by that time, is working with the Flores cartel, the Sinaloa cartel. It was still one organization, and just being around the business all day, being around his associates,
all the time, understanding the demeanor, learning how to shake a hand, learning how to look in an eye, understanding the game. By 13 years old, being basically a professional at their trade. If it was bud at the time, boom, they were pros at that. Know how to plan it, up it, cut it, pack it, push it, get it to where it gotta go, all of that. They knew all of that by the time they was 13, 14.
I was able to understand even the Sinaloa or the cartel slang back then, you know.
And not only that, they were understanding the psychology of how to fool guards, the psychology of deception, the psychology of how to make things look small, not a big deal. Oh no, we're good. We're just a couple of twins in the back seat. You know what I'm saying? They was learning all of that.
You know, when people were wearing silk shirts with the gold chains and stuff like that, and being around them, and being around, you know, both environments where my brother actually went from being the kingpin in the neighborhood to actually starting to distribute, you know, especially to black gangs in Chicago. And I was able to actually be a part of that and everything I was learning at the time. So when my brother got indicted, I was just turning 17. It's like one of his sources of supply, which was going to be a important person later on in the Sinaloa cartel, sent for my brother and I, and, you know, offered us a load of drugs, which was at that time our first deal was going to be our own deal, was going to be 30 kilos of cocaine, which is, you know, at that time, you know, for someone like, you know, I was 17 and it being our first deal, like, it didn't seem like a lot for us, but it was a lot, you know, under the circumstances. We sold our first 30 kilos that day, you know, received 50 kilos the next day. And basically by the time we were 18, we were already moving anywhere from 300 to 400 kilos a month. And I guess, you know, that started off like a run, I guess, that, you know, just seeing the business, you know, as a business and seeing the other side of it. I think not being part of a gang, the way we were raised, I think that helped us a lot. And having those relationships, you know, from early on and being able to, you know, be businessmen, I think is what kind of propelled us.
Somebody reached out to me and said, you know, they had an opinion. Sometimes we'll be having a conversation and people will not want to talk about exactly what we're talking about. They bring other things into the fold. This, I didn't felt like that, you know, because when we did the BMF Flores Twins conversation, people were like, yeah, but Meech and Southwest T didn't cooperate. And I said, yeah, but that's not what we were talking about. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't part of the conversation. The conversation was who pushed the most work, who was the most influential, who was the biggest trafficker. Somebody came to me in the chat, say, hey man, not in the chat, in the DMs, and they was like, one thing you didn't discuss is that the Twins' first deal was 30 bricks. He was like, it's different when you get it out the mud and you flip a 8-ball, and then you flip that, and then you flip that, and you double that, and you double that, and you double that until you become the man. To me, it's something that the Twins probably can't comprehend because that's not how they started. You know what I'm saying? They started in the game. Somebody gave them 30 and they went and they did 30. So to them, it's like, this is normal. This is what it is. This other person's ideology was more like, yeah, man, you get it from the mud. You flip, you flip, you flip. They got grandfathered in. They had all the connections. It was easy for them. They didn't have to work for it. This was part of the sentiment. But I wonder what y'all think. Y'all could give me y'all opinion in the chat. You know, if that puts BMF a step up because BMF probably started with an O and moved up from there. Was it cheating? Was it them having a ringer? Their old man, their big brothers, them pushing 30 bricks like that? Was it an advantage? Does it mean less? My question is this: if those same connections given to somebody else, I mean, there's only one in so many people you're gonna find that'll be able to pull it off the way they did. That's a whole nother perspective of it. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think the Twins would be like, yo, you're crazy, dog. You take what you're given and you run with it. Again, somebody else given what they were given, and they probably wouldn't have handled it thoroughly. They probably would have ruined it and you know, got themselves smoked. So it took a couple of smart guys to understand the opportunity they had and actually pull it off. But again, you let me know if the thought is these dudes were ringers. These dudes had it all set up for them.
By the time I was 19, 20, we were pushing well over 1,000 kilos in a month in Chicago. And, you know, I explained this, like, this is without me ever going to Mexico. Like, this is, the drugs are already in Chicago. Being basically a wholesale distributor for the Sinaloa cartel, and at that time for the Gulf cartel. I have no direct ties to them. You know, I have a middleman. And
030 North in the chat said nothing's easy. I think they had it the hardest because they had to find routes and they were involved with submarines coming back from Colombia. Not just anybody could pull that off. You give what they got to somebody that didn't understand the game the way they did by the age that they were, and they would have never reached the lengths that these guys did. And I honor the dude that gets it from the mud. But I also honor the dude that is opportunistic and gets the opportunity and is prepared for it when it comes. You know, I honor both things.
You know, I'm 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. I'm making $2-3 million a month.
Now, like, do you think you were kind of in the right place at the right time, or the fact you had such good connections and it was when? I mean, how did you blow up so fast? Or is it the nature of the drug game? What do you think, looking back on it now? What made you just become this big, this fast?
Just to make it clear, you know this with your background. Just the drug trafficking is not easy. There's people fail.
I don't know Buddy's background, so I'm
at it every day. So I don't know if my brother and I knew what a successful drug trafficker was, other than what we would see in the news at that time, which was like the Lord of the Skies or Caro Quintero. The movie Scarface to us was also a great movie, but it never motivated us to die like him. I think it's that story, right? And I feel like what made my brother and I successful, that somehow, some way, growing up, we never wanted to be like anyone else.
What did you say right there?
The movie Scarface to us was also a great movie, but it never motivated us to die like him. I think
See, that right there just shows you the difference in their character than the average run-of-the-mill hustler. Scarface taught, yeah, get it hard, get it fast, and you go out how you go out, right? Screaming. They were like, nah, we'll skip that part. That's in their character right there. He said it right there. That movie did not motivate them to die the way he did. It motivated them to be slick.
It's that story, right? And I feel like what made my brother and I successful, that somehow, some way, growing up, we never wanted to be like anyone else. We always said, this, like, we never changed who we were. We got into business, for economics reasons, and we never let anything, change that we were there for one reason. We were obviously, I feel like, intelligent enough not to get involved in certain situations, but also I think it goes back to how we were raised. The simple principles that people take for granted: respect, doing the right thing, going out your way for others. Sometimes, like, some of these stuff that sounds like you're I'll be talking about the Bible, but in the drug trade, it was always about what type of person you were. And that is what actually I felt like took us, from where we started and where we're going to end up at,
That's the part that seems like a double-edged sword to me, and it seems weird to me. They're like, it's about who you were as a person, and then you find out that a lot of these people were monsters. You know what I'm saying? But I guess a monster with a firm handshake and eye contact probably get you a long way.
Those simple things that people think that are not a necessity, right? I think also is our appearance. We were young. They didn't take us as a threat. I didn't want to be taken as a threat. So that made...
I didn't want to be taken as a threat. Again, I came in here at the beginning of this when I started on this channel, and my complaint was the regular things. They cooperated. They were showing everything off, and they got to be lying about the bodies. My perspective has changed over time, listening to the story, understanding their character. Listen to what he's saying. He's saying it over and over again. They don't have that part of them in the character.
They didn't take us as a threat. I didn't want to be known as a threat. Just goes to show you that we think sometimes in a broad spectrum and say, oh, no, but that has to be this. There has to be bodies involved. You don't get that far. No, you don't usually get that far without bodies involved, but these guys did it. What can I say? That I know of. Because to me, the only thing that don't make sense, and nobody can explain it to me. If they got bodies on them, why didn't they put it in the deal? Because if a body comes back on them today, they get to get scooped up today. Right? So if you ask me, there ain't no bodies on them. Right? But everybody in the chat will say, in the comments will say so, or the trolls will say so. But you got to show me and explain to me why. What would keep them from putting that in an immunity deal? Right? Brother Himes, not only did they get 30 bricks, they got rid of them in one day. That's a big deal. Again, prepared. Another person thrown that opportunity might not have been able to pull that off. Mike Jones, we was buying cars and them boys was buying subs. That says it all. Absolutely. Be taken as a threat. So that made, the people we were involved with and associates, it made them more comfortable.
They didn't want to be taken as a threat.
They didn't take us as a threat. I didn't want to be taken as a threat. So that made, the people we were involved with and associates, it made them more comfortable. And then in return, kind of, we would build these friendships or these relationships with people. And You know, it was, I think for them, it's always like, I know these guys ain't going to do me wrong.
Mm.
But in reality, it's not because I was fearful. It's just that that wasn't who we were. And I think that actually helped us, and it helped us all along the way. It actually helped us solidify some of the, you know, those relationships we had with the biggest jugglers in the world. That I didn't want to be them.